The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer, weekday afternoons at 5 Eastern on CNN.
You caused quite a stir when you asked this question, when you made the statement about our colleague here at CNN, Piers Morgan. I'm going to play what you said in Parliament today. Listen to this.
Piers Morgan, who is now a celebrity anchor at CNN, who do not appear to have asked him any questions at all about phone hacking, was a former editor of the Daily Mirror. He said in his book The Insider recently, and I quote, that the little trick of entering a standard 4-digit code allow anyone to call a number and hear all your messages. In that book, he boasted that using that little trick enables him to win Scoop of the Year on a story about Sven-Göran Eriksson. So that is a former editor of the Daily Mirror being very open about his personal use of phone hacking.
All right, what evidence do you have to make that kind of accusation against Piers Morgan?
Well, I said what I said in the committee, Wolf, and I'm afraid right now I'm going to say that I can't comment about it outside of the committee room because, as Mr Morgan will know, inside Parliament, when I speak at a select committee of Parliament, I am protected by absolute parliamentary privilege. To repeat something outside of Parliament doesn't give me that cloak of privilege, and Mr Morgan is a very rich man. So I am sure that the ferocious investigative journalists at CNN and across the news media in the United States will take careful note of what was said in the committee and look into it. That's the best I'm afraid I'm going to be able to do on legal grounds.
Well, I understand the legal grounds. Piers Morgan is joining us on the phone right now. I want to give him a chance to respond to that very direct allegation you made against him and his reputation. Piers, go ahead and respond and tell Mrs. Mensch what you think.
Well, I'm amused by her cowardice in refusing to repeat that allegation now she's not in Parliament and covered by privilege. As she may be already aware, she came out with an absolute blatant lie during those proceedings. At no stage in my book, or indeed outside of my book, have I ever boasted of using phone hacking for any stories. For the record, in my time at the Mirror and the News of the World, I have never hacked a phone, told anybody to hack a phone, or published any story based on the hacking of a phone. And what she did today was a deliberate, in my view, and outrageous attempt to smear my name, CNN's name, the Daily Mirror's name, and I think her now to have the breathtaking gall to just sit here calmly and say, I can't possibly repeat that because I haven't got privilege, is an outrage. And I call on you, Miss Mensch, now to repeat it, show some balls, repeat what you said about me, and then maybe go and buy a copy of my book, The Insider, and see where in that book these claims that you made today in a televised committee watched all over the world, where that claim is in that book, because it isn't there.
All right, Mrs. Mensch, do you want to respond to that?
As I've just said, I made the claims in the select committee and people will look at them.
Yeah, it's not in the book though, Mrs. Mensch, is it? So why don't we just figure on exactly what you said? You said, I boast in my book that I got a scoop from phone hacking. Where in my book do I say that? The only thing that I say in my book, which was published years ago, by the way, not recently as you tried to claim, the only thing I say in that book is this. Apparently, if you don't change the standard security code that every phone comes with, then anyone can call your number. And if you don't answer, tap in the standard 4-digit code to hear all your messages. I'll change mine just in case. But it makes me wonder how many public figures and celebrities are aware of this little trick. What part of that sentence, or sentences, Mrs. Mensch, led you to believe that I was boasting about acquiring scoops from phone hacking? And if there is no evidence for that, are you going to publicly apologize to me and to CNN right now for such an outrageous lie?
You've quoted what I quoted in the select committee word for word. I refer journalists at CNN and the wider United States to what I said in the select committee.
With respect, Mrs. Mensch, that is not true. Let me read you word for word what you said. In that book, he boasted that using that little trick enables him to win Scoop of the Year for a story about former England national soccer manager Sven-Göran Eriksson. So that is a former editor of the Daily Mirror being very open about his personal use of phone hacking, and he indeed is a former editor of the News of the World. You said it. Mrs. Mensch. You said it under the cloak of parliamentary privilege, and I put it to you. Wait a minute. Let me finish.
Morgan,
I put it to you now.
Well know.
I put it to you
Mr.
now.
Morgan, no. I think
said,
you've been putting it to me for the last 5 minutes, and
yeah.
I am now responding.
Respond.
What I said was cloaked by parliamentary privilege. As I said, you are a very rich man. I refer you to what I said in the Select Committee of Parliament, and as I told Wolf before I came on, I will not step outside of parliamentary privilege. I choose not to do so. I refer you to what I said in the Select Committee of Parliament, and I'm quite sure that your colleagues in the American news media will be looking into that very carefully.
Yes, and I think they'll be quite sure they'll be looking into you abusing parliamentary privilege and telling lies at a committee meeting about me, which I have now exposed to be lies because you stated as a fact that I boasted in my book of criminal activity. You have no evidence for that. It's not in the book.
Oh,
I have never
scared.
boasted about it for the simple reason it never happened. So I think you should apologize for being a liar.
And go ahead, respond. Go ahead, Mrs. Mensch.
Select Committee. And as to the threats that you've just made, they don't faze me in the slightest.
Really? Well, they're not threats. They're asking you to correct a lie, and you are hiding in a cowardly way, as a lot of MPs tend to do, by the way, back in Britain, behind the cloak of this privilege that you have, which I'm sure will be baffling to American news media, who you keep urging to investigate this. I'd like them to investigate your right to abuse parliamentary privilege in this way. And the fact that you won't even withdraw it now, when you must be aware that that stuff is not in my book. You must be aware. People must have said to you, you made a terrible mistake. And you think you can just calmly smear me?
I refer you to exactly what I said in the Select Committee. I refer you to what I said in the Select Committee. I feel no need to apologise. I refer you to what I said in the Select Committee.
You told a lie. It's not.
Would you like to apologise for threatening me?
I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you that you told a lie, and
that's
I'm
the
asking
construction
you to
put on it. That's the construction that you put on it, Mr. Morgan. I put in it the construction I put in the Select Committee, and I refer you again to my words in the Select Committee, with which,
Mrs. Mensch,
with which, and with that, I am perfectly content. Mr. Morgan, no matter how many times you say with respect as you flounce about and make your little threats, it makes no difference to me. I think I've been perfectly clear, and if you don't mind, we are now repeating ourselves.
Sorry, as everybody listening will
know. I have other interviews to do. So Mr. Morgan can go on, but I'm going to
let me break in because make a final thought, Piers. Go ahead.
At no stage have I made any threats to anybody. I have been accused today in a very public manner of criminal activity, and I've been accused of it by a member of Parliament hiding under the cloak of privilege, and she is citing stuff that I wrote in my book as her evidence. Anybody that reads that book will see that no such stuff appears in the book, no such admission appears. It is an outrageous lie and a smear. I'm not threatening you. I'm asking you to publicly apologise for misleading everybody at that committee.
And I am saying I feel no need whatsoever to apologise, and I refer you to my evidence in the Select Committee. And Wolf, if he's going to go on like this, I'm going to cut the interview short.
Well, let me just wrap it up.
I think I've made my point.
You both made your points, and Mrs. Mensch, let me just point out, if you go through in the next few hours, the next few days, whatever it takes, a complete review of what you said in the parliamentary committee, and you determine that there is no evidence in this book to back up what you said, would you then acknowledge that you made a mistake and apologize to Piers Morgan?
I am perfectly content, Wolf, with everything I said in the Select Committee, perfectly content with it right now, without the need for review. And as I say, I refer America's journalists to what I said in the Select Committee, and I'm quite perfectly content to stick with that.
Yeah, why don't you try reading the book and then see how perfectly content you are then?